I vividly remember sitting at international student orientation at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in early August of 2019. See, I had just moved across the Atlantic Ocean to start my studies of economics in the US. And as Americans love to do, we were sitting in a circle, introducing ourselves during an icebreaker. And essentially what that entailed was having 25 already tired university students sit in the circle, telling us their name, their favorite color, and where they're from. Now, for the first two questions, I had a relatively straightforward answer. My name is Webster Woltersdorf, and my favorite color is red. Yet, for that third question, where are you from? My answer wasn't that simple. Let me explain. I was born in Bristol, England, to German parents. My parents grew up in former East Germany. And here I am. There's two pictures I found this week on my hard drive. Here I am during a day excursion in London. And here I am wearing the 3 lions on my chest. And after 22 years, football still hasn't come home. Yet, so I grew up in the UK to German parents, which meant that a lot of our holidays were spent in Germany. So we spent our holidays in Germany, and here I am in my favorite police motorcycle, making sure that my cousins weren't bullying my younger brother. When I reached 5 years old, I'd already experienced my third country, and one of my earliest childhood memories was actually playing rugby with a ball that was twice the size of my already big head. So by the time I was 5, I was in my third country, and I was very unaware of what was going on. But after a year only in New Zealand, we decided to move back to the UK to be closer to our grandparents. Hence, I started school there, and you can see that amalgamation of my British and German upbringing. First of all, you have that very British school uniform, and then you have what the Germans love to call a Zuckertüte, which is a cone filled with sweets and presents that your parents and grandparents give you. So I started school in the UK, and I loved being in the UK. But just before Brexit, I'm not sure if that was a decision that was made consciously by my parents, but we moved to Leipzig in Germany, where my parents had met. And here I started attending LIS. That was in 2014. And here I am being way too happy about a third-place finish in the varsity boys volleyball tournament. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time at LIS. But nonetheless, something was missing. And so I said, let me try and find an alternative. And I found a school in the south of Germany called UWC Robert Bosch College, and I was really enamored by that school because we had a student body of only 200 students from 95 different countries. So I applied and went through the German National Committee, got accepted, and started 2 of the most hectic, but 2 of also the most enjoyable years of my life. Here we are, for those of you who don't know what Platz gesperrt means, it means the field is not open. So I'm not sure how legal that was, but it was a good time in Freiburg. Now, you guys have probably realized that a pattern has emerged, and that pattern is that I moved around a lot. See, I'm what a lot of people call a third culture kid. See, a third culture kid, or a TCK, is a child who grows up in a culture different from the one in which his or her parents grew up. Now, I very deliberately said that definition because it comes from my own dictionary, Merriam-Webster. But yeah, I'm a third culture kid, and a lot of you in this room are probably third culture kids. Whether you are the product of an intercultural marriage, whether you moved around a lot because your parents were in the military, or you simply were the product of immigrant families. Third culture kids are around the world, and they have a diverse set of cultures from an early age. Now, there are lots of advantages to being a TCK. You're often bilingual or trilingual, and you've often traveled across the world with young ages already. But on the other hand, third culture kids also have a hard time finding identity in a world that loves putting things into categories. Think politics. You're a Democrat or you're a Republican. And these third culture kids don't fit into any sort of box that we've made for them. And given that today is about a journey to discovery, I would like to share what I have learned in my 22 years as a third culture kid, spanning 6 schools and now 4 countries. The first lesson that I've learned is that adaptability is a must. See, we get thrown in at the deep end as third culture kids. We move around a lot. We have to leave our rooms behind. We have to leave houses behind. We leave friends behind. And we often have no choice. So wherever we move, we have to adapt. One of the stories that I like to tell is of when I was 13 or 14 years old, and I came to Leipzig, Germany. And there, I gave my first ever presentation in German to a German crowd. I'd grown up bilingually, but the German that I knew was oftentimes just what my family had taught me, or what I'd found on Super RTL, or on the child's TV series. So I came to Germany, understood everything, but what I'd missed growing up was that contact with people my age. So I put it as a goal to myself to learn German, and learn German properly. So I gave that first presentation in my German class. I was 14 years old. It was about plastic in the ocean. And I remember preparing for a whole week for that presentation. I remember sitting at home, writing everything on cards in so-called Karteikärtchen that the Germans love, and doing my presentation on plastic in the ocean. Now, I gave that presentation, I sat back down, and I was immensely proud of myself. I'd overcome one of my biggest fears to speak in German during a presentation. So I was very proud of myself, and then I saw my peers getting up, and I felt an immense sense of jealousy that they could seemingly wing their presentations and give their presentations, sit back down, and converse with ease with each other. After being knocked down like that, I went home and I said, "Mum, I want to change something. I want to adapt." And what I did, I started writing German essays voluntarily to myself, and I gave them to my mum. She corrected them and gave them back. I started doing more mock presentations at home with my dad, and I started speaking more and more with my grandparents in German. Until, when I was 15 or 16, I didn't need that week or those 10 days to prepare for that presentation, but I only needed 2 or 3 days, and I became more and more comfortable. So that brings me to my first point of what I learned as a third culture kid, is that I have to adapt. I not only have to adapt in the academic sense, where I have to, for example, use a different language, but I also have to adapt because I'm moving to a new place. Which brings me to one of the second most pertinent things that I've learned as a third culture kid along the way. And that is that navigating friendships is tough. See, I've been to 6 different schools, and having friends all around the world is great, because you always have a place to sleep. Especially when you get older and you love traveling, couch surfing can be a lot of fun. It's also great for me as an economics major now. I'm really interested in world events. And so I can easily talk to some of my friends and say, "Hey, look, what do you think about this thing going on in your country?" And they can give me a nice, concise answer or point me in the right direction. So I'm immensely privileged to have that network of people around the world. On the other hand, being a third culture kid and moving around a lot means that you have to say a lot of goodbyes. Now, my most recent set of goodbyes actually occurred just 10 days ago. I graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I had to say my 4th or 5th set of goodbyes. And I was frustrated as my roommate set me off at RDU Airport in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I sat at the check-in counter and felt a sense of immense numbness. And I was like, not again. See, third culture kids become very, very good at making friends, and they become very, very good at navigating those friendships, but really maintaining those friendships is tough, especially with time zones. If there's one thing that I could abolish in this world, it would be daylight saving time, because every time I try to contact any of my friends and there's daylight saving time, I always get it wrong. So yeah, I've told you now that navigating friendships is tough, and that moving around is tough. And I want to now talk about the third thing that I've learned over the years. And that home is not always necessarily a physical place. See, growing up, I had a lot of friends in different places, and they always knew this is their defined hometown. This is their house. This is where their grandparents live. And for me, that really never was something that I could relate to. And so it took me to an experience I had last December when I started talking about this topic more and more with my friends. I'd started feeling more and more comfortable in the US after an initial period of culture shock. Not just the food and the urban structure, but the people were just not me. But anyhow, I started feeling more and more at home. And that was mostly because I bought a new moped, a genuine Buddy 50 49.7cc, and she only took, I think, a gallon a week. Her name was Samantha, for any of you that are interested. But she was great, and I started feeling more and more at home in North Carolina. But still, as I said, there was something missing in the US. I couldn't exactly relate to the people, and so that wasn't home. What I then did is I visited the UK for the first time in 6 years. I flew to London to visit my friend, and I was ecstatic to see people who spoke like me, because in the US, wherever you go, people are always asking you, "What's that accent, sweetie?" even at Starbucks. So I went to London, and I was ecstatic to see people and hear people who spoke in the same way I did. I was ecstatic to see Cadbury chocolate on the supermarket shelves. Yet after 10 days, I still didn't feel like that was home. Something was missing, something irked me. So as you do, you fly to another country, and I flew back to Germany for Christmas. And again, I was really, really happy to be at home, to see my friends, to come back to LIS, to see my family, and really celebrate those German Christmas traditions. Again, I was home for about 2 weeks before flying back to the US, and I really enjoyed myself. Yet, I had that same feeling that this isn't really the physical location I would say is home. So this is something that really irked me, and I called one of my best friends, who's also a third culture kid and who's grown up around the world. And I said, "Look, mate, I have this problem where I really want to associate with one physical place, but I can't really do so." And he said, "I don't have a solution to your problem, but what you can do is change your mindset and embrace the fact that home is not necessarily a physical location." And I went home and thought about that a lot and was like, damn, he's right. Home doesn't necessarily have to be a physical location. And for a lot of you in the crowd now who can identify with the fact that you may be a third culture kid or have moved around a lot because of your parents' work, I would say 2 words. Own it. Own the fact that you are a third culture kid and embrace that. Because A, there's nothing you can do about it, and B, it's beautiful. I would also tell that kid who was at University of North Carolina, student international orientation, and I would tell that kid, own it and embrace it. Because then, if you own it and you embrace it, you can be the first British German kid who grew up partially in New Zealand to play for a US university at the Rugby National Championships in Washington, D.C. Thank you.